nurturing businesses with support and services to help them grow and bloom. The Time by Sagicor Bank is 7 o'clock.
CVM News at 7 headlines Tuesday, courtesy of Heart and STA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Tonight in CVM News at 7, Bloodbath, Cuba's warning if U.S. imposes new sanctions. Problematic, PNP raised concerns about relief fund allocations. And government defends hurricane spending after audit finds just 1.8% of donations expended. While later in sports, Humble Lion bitten in the forest in Popeye's Challenge Cup.
Headlines Tuesday, courtesy of Heart and STA Trust, Jamaica's Human Development Agency.
Jamaica's newest and boldest football competition, the Popeyes Challenge Cup, rolls on with round 2 action Tuesday, May 19 from St. Elizabeth. It's round 2 of the Popeyes Challenge Cup. Humble Lion battle Med Forest at 4:30 p.m. and Stets Elite FA take on Lime Hall in the feature at 7:45 p.m. Live on CVM TV. This is David versus Goliath. This is win or go home. This is the Popeyes Challenge Cup.
CVM News at 7 Tuesday, brought to you by
New KFC Saucy Wings. Available in sweet and red chili and citrus chipotle barbecue. KFC, it's finger licking.
From Kingston, Jamaica, this is CVM News at 7. It's Wednesday, May 19, 2026. I'm Nika Lewis. Thank you for joining us for what will be a shorter newscast, so you can, of course, see all the action from our live broadcast of the Popeyes Challenge Cup. Tensions between the United States and Cuba are escalating amid reports that Havana may have acquired hundreds of military drones from Russia and Iran. Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel has warned that any U.S. military action against the island would lead to what he calls a bloodbath with incalculable consequences. Akeem Orrett has more.
The rhetoric between the United States and Cuba is growing sharper by the day. At the center of the tensions are reports that Cuba may have acquired more than 300 military drones from Russia and Iran, with U.S. intelligence sources alleging the drones could be used against American targets, including Guantanamo Bay. But independent defense analyst Dr. Sanjay Badri Maharaj says despite the strong words coming from Cuba, its military capabilities remain limited due to aging equipment and years of economic pressure.
The distance between the United States and Cuba is very short, but there are also no amphibious forces in the area with which to do an invasion. I mean, American air power can level Cuba fairly easily, but that's not an invasion. It's, destruction. America would need to put a lot of troops on the ground to invade Cuba. Would they be successful? The answer is, in the short term, the answer is yes. The Cuban military is in no shape to resist anybody. This is not the Cuban military of the 1980s.
Pointing to the old war equipment, Dr. Badr Maharaj says Cuba has had a hard time maintaining those very same equipment for years. He adds, however, that if the situation continues to escalate, the wider Caribbean could also feel the impact.
You could have a major refugee crisis out of Cuba. And I don't think any of us are prepared for that. That's one. Two, we could actually start seeing if the Cuban society breaks down completely, you could start seeing large quantities of weapons ending up in criminal hands throughout the region. And we're talking military-grade weapons here, not simply small arms anymore, which inherently is extraordinarily scary for us.
The tensions come as reports emerge that the Trump administration may seek criminal charges against the former Cuban leader Raul Castro. And with Cuba already battling severe fuel shortages, blackouts, and a worsening economic crisis, Dr. Badr Maharaj believes the current pressure campaign could push the island even closer to collapse.
Cuba doesn't have any cards in this equation right now. And I think that's the scariest thing. We're dealing with, like any hegemon, Cuba is not in a position to really do very much. And once it's not in a position to do very much, the bully gets away with it. And I think that's a very stark fact we need to be very aware of. Cuba has a very weak hand in this thing, largely because the Cuban economy is easy to cripple.
The rising tensions also come as Cuba faces a worsening fuel and electricity crisis, blamed in part on tighter U.S. restrictions and reduced oil supplies from Venezuela. Reporting for CVM News, I'm Akeem Orrett.
The government received a total of $1.44 billion toward hurricane relief efforts. However, the opposition People's National Party gathered imperfections from the findings of an Auditor General's report that continues to affect misplaced Jamaicans. Crystal Williams tells us more.
If we start in chaos, we must end in chaos. This was the conclusion drawn by opposition spokesperson for Social Protection and Transformation, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, during the PNP's latest press conference in response to the management of the hurricane relief funds donated to the Jamaican government. With only 12% of the $1.44 billion donated actually expended as at the end of February, the Shadow Minister says the way hurricane relief has been handled is problematic.
What has happened with the 1.44 billion sitting there with no plan is such a wicked act. These funds were intended to deliver shelter and to help hurricane victims. Instead, what do we have? Nothing but utter chaos. So the Auditor General's review has uncovered catastrophic deficiencies in governance, oversight, and accountability.
She quotes estimates from the Red Cross indicating that 156,000 homes were damaged and 90,000 families directly affected. She gathered from the Minister of Labor and Social Security that 14,000 home assessments were completed. Dr. Brown-Burke is of the view that the assessment process needs to be fair, transparent, and criteria-based.
Some of us might think that there is some criteria, yes, because there is the major damage, the minor damage, and the total damage. However, we need to make sure that when persons are in fact assessed, that they are put in the category that they belong. That whatever errors there might be, human errors, that they are caught and that they are actually resolved.
She says it is important for systems devised by the government to have opportunities for individuals to query, verify, and respond to assumptions when it comes to lists of persons eligible for grants. Dr. Brown-Burke has also made accusations that damage levels are being altered after assessment.
What this means is that, I don't want to say secretly, but it means a change, a reduction in terms of what those families would have been entitled to, would have thought they were going to receive, in terms of what their conditions would demand. I've said it before, that these data fixes are absolutely essential to ensure that every Jamaican who deserves to receive a benefit, that they do.
Crystal Williams reporting for CVM News.
But facts and context matter. That response from the government as it seeks to clarify the details surrounding the recent audit, which revealed that only a small portion of donations received for hurricane recovery efforts has so far been spent. With more, here's Amoy Harriet.
The audit painted a stark picture. Of the $1.4 billion donated for hurricane recovery efforts, just $26 million has been used. That's about 1.8% of the total funds. The findings sparked a wave of public criticism, with many Jamaicans chastising the government as some hurricane-affected residents say they're still struggling to recover months later. But in a video statement, Government Senator and Parliamentary Secretary in the Information Ministry, Morgan, pushed back against the criticism, saying the audit figures lack context. He says the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, had to undertake a number of processes to ensure the funds were spent properly and could be fully accounted for.
Jamaica is in a new era of managing and accounting for public funds. This is in keeping with the financial instructions of 2017, which replaced the previous instructions of 1977. The $1.4 billion Jamaican dollars received in Hurricane Melissa donations could not have been used willy-nilly.
He sought to provide a breakdown of how some of the money has been spent so far.
Of the $1.4 billion Jamaican dollars received in Hurricane Melissa donations, $240 million is being spent to support the Government of Jamaica directed roof repair program. Additionally, $600 million is being used to build bases for the modular housing solutions for the people whose dwellings have been destroyed. In tandem with that, $560 million of the donated funds has been committed to additional Hurricane Melissa-related recovery efforts.
Notably, the government says the $1.4 billion in donations represents just a fraction of its overall hurricane response spending, which it says now stands at $67 billion. That money, Senator Morgan says, has been going towards the R.O.O.F.S program, fixing damaged schools, post-disaster cleanup efforts, care packages, and restoring water supply across the island. He also pointed to support for the agricultural sector, small businesses, and the controversial loan to the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPS.
If the government did not go about using the funds in this manner, its detractors could easily argue them get a whole heap of money in donations and we not see where them do with it. That cannot be credibly argued in this case, however, as we have repaired roofs to show and will have concrete bases and other infrastructure and expenditure associated with the installation of modular housing solutions to point to and show you, the donors, what your money would have been used to do.
Amoy Harriet, CVM News.
You're watching CVM News at 7. Stay with us.
Crispy onion rings and Kentucky Fried Chicken together till the first bite breaks them apart. Say yes to the new Onion Ring Zinger from KFC.
Employers, once a month, you have the power to shape Jamaica's future. By paying your hard 3% contribution, you're not just contributing, you're investing in people, in skills, in our economy. Your hard contribution trains working-age Jamaicans, aligns programs with workforce needs, and secures our future. That's not just contribution, it's transformation. Contribute to heart and to your future.
Already have a T-tag for your vehicle? Just top it up and go through. You can now conveniently add funds to your T-tag on WhatsApp. Just save our T-tag WhatsApp number 876-355-3336 and send us a message when you want to top up. Top up your T-tag and continue to go through quicker and cheaper on Trans Jam highways.
Thanks so much for staying with us. Still in the news, a recent court ruling involving imitation firearms is now raising questions about Jamaica's Firearms Act. Attorney at law Alexander Shaw says the law removes judicial discretion and may be too broad in some cases. Kevin Black has more.
Attorney at law Alexander Shaw is raising questions about the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulations Act following the sentencing of a Kingston music producer to 15 years and life imprisonment for possessing 8 imitation firearms. Shaw says the law currently makes no distinction between a real firearm and an imitation one, meaning individuals can face the same mandatory sentences even when the objects cannot fire bullets.
Well, the law makes no distinction with respect to an actual, a firearm that is capable of discharging bullets and an imitation in terms of the sentencing. So once you are found with something looking like a firearm, whether or not it is capable of discharging bullets, the law treats all firearms the same way. So the individual who has an actual firearm that is capable of discharging deadly bullets will get the same time as the person who has an imitation firearm.
He argues that the legislation removes judicial discretion, preventing judges from considering the specific circumstances of each case before imposing sentence.
We have been arguing at the bar that albeit the Privy Council has said that mandatory minimum sentences are constitutional, we believe that they have the impact of taking away judicial independence, and that principle of sentencing that, each case should be decided on its own facts and a judge should take into account the person in the...
Shaw also warns that the law is contributing to court backlogs as more defendants choose to fight their cases rather than plead guilty under mandatory minimum sentencing rules.
Because when you look at even the fact that a person who wants to plead guilty, having, confessed that this firearm was mine, there is no incentive, and so there are greater backlogs now in court because the judge really can't make a decision that will benefit the accused in some way, or if not benefit, but encourage more persons who are before the court.
Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
President of the All Voice Taxi Association, Lorraine Finnegan, says operators are prepared to give the government until June 1st to finalize a decision on the long outstanding 16% fare increase. Finnegan says following meetings with the transport and finance ministers, operators were assured the matter will go before cabinet on June 1, though taxi groups are rejecting any proposal to split the increase in phases.
All right, the end result, we have been getting several verbal commitments from the minister in March of 2026 for the 16% to be made available to us in June of 2026. No date in June was ever given, but at the meeting today, we get a specific date of the 1st of June that the 16% will now go to cabinet for deliberation.
A detective sergeant who was stationed at the Portmore police station in 2022 gave evidence regarding his role in the incident involving the murder of Zamari McKay. This in the ongoing Clansman trial. Carla Ramdeen has been following this and files this report.
A detective sergeant who was a detective corporal at the time told the court that on August 11, 2022, he received a call and proceeded to a section of the Lakes Penn Main Road in St. Catherine. Upon arriving at the location, he observed police service vehicles and spoke with a corporal. He said he then saw the body of a man lying face down in what appeared to be an illegal dumping area. The witness told the court that the body was clad in blue jeans and a blue shirt, partially covering the head. He further stated that both ankles were tied with a white merino. The witness also said he observed several spent casings around the body, as well as what appeared to be blood. He told the court that the body had several wounds to the upper back and neck. The scene was subsequently cordoned off and calls made to the St. Catherine Scenes of Crime unit. After the unit arrived, a police corporal processed the scene and the body. The witness further testified that he observed a detective constable remove several identification cards from the right back pocket of the deceased. He said the items included a Jamaican driver's license and a Sierra ID. He told the court that the body was later turned onto its back so the deceased man's face could be photographed. The witness said he observed the face of the deceased and noted that it matched the photograph of the driver's license that had been retrieved. The witness will finish his examination in chief on Wednesday. The evidence goes towards counts 28 and 29, which pertains to the August 22 robbery and murder of Samari McKay. The men charged under these counts are the accused Carlos Williams, Jermaine Clark, and Owen Billings. Carla Ramdeen, CVM News.
Well, a 48-hour curfew has been imposed in sections of the St. Andrews South Police Division. The curfew, which commenced at 6 p.m. on Monday, will remain in effect until 6 p.m. Wednesday, May 20. The east boundary runs southerly from Chisholm Avenue, traveling to East Avenue, intersecting at Marcus Garvey Drive. Then south from Marcus Garvey Drive in the vicinity of East Avenue to the Duhaney River. West from the Duhaney River to the Kingston Harbor, and north from Happy Grove community drawn to Maxfield Avenue intersection. During the hours of the curfew, persons within the boundaries are required to remain indoors unless otherwise authorized by the authorities. In October 2026, the government is set to launch a Non-Profit Organization Act, or an NPO, aimed at modernizing the regulatory framework which governs civil society organizations that are at the root of communities and are integral in nation building, disaster response services, and formed a key part of youth development. While the group is optimistic about the new act introducing a more unified framework, they are advocating for clearer and enforceable service standards and formal mechanisms to support sustained engagement between the government and civil society. With the details, here's Natasha Williams.
Government planning to do away with the Charities Act of 2013 and roll out the newly proposed Non-Profit Organization NPO Act in October 2026, civil society groups have already leveled up by consulting with organizations providing guidance on what a well-structured legislation should look like. Executive Director for the Council of Voluntary Social Services, CVSS, Nancy Pinas, says they regard the introduction of new legislation as a positive move.
Having an overarching act is certainly a good thing. We really do encourage all our members, our smaller organizations in their formative years to get registered with the Department of Friendlies and Cooperatives, which is the charities regulator here in Jamaica. So it is absolutely a good thing. It is just as important that civil society organizations who provide vital services across Jamaica strengthen democratic participation, and we support vulnerable communities, are participants in the preparation of the new act.
Ms. Pinas says while the primary focus remains on inclusion and the modernization of the regulatory framework governing non-profit entities, civil society stakeholders are anticipating that the new act will also streamline the existing complex registration procedures with a more efficient centralized registration process. However, her calls for additional transparency and stronger accountability under the imposition of the new law persists.
We'd like to see a real sort of reporting on what the charities sector does for this country. Part of your submission to the charities, both annually and for registration, is to indicate very clearly how much donations you received. It is a third sector. It is as important as private sector, and it's complementary to the government of Jamaica in how it achieves its Vision 2030 and SDG goals.
While the proposed law is being viewed as a defining moment for the sector, Ms. Pinhas warns that it may also unintentionally serve as a disservice.
We believe that without consultation or input from the institutions which fall directly under the act. It is a possibility, but it's an opportunity, and what we are seeking and soliciting is an opportunity to have a seat at the table, to be able to make recommendations, to assist the government as it frames a whole new set of legislation. It is not from what I understand, it's not an editing of the old Charities Act of 2013. This is an entirely new act.
With the umbrella organization for civil society in Belize being tasked to undertake and frame the NPO Act, which will later be reviewed by local government legislators, the groups remain optimistic that the new move will provide better outcomes, which will also incorporate laws governing non-profits renewals and registrations.
There needs to be this protective framework because obviously these are donations. We need to protect the beneficiaries. We need to protect the donors. We need to ensure that these organizations have systems of accountability and transparency. There is no doubt about it. A regulator is critical, but we need a regulator that is seen as a partner and a facilitator.
Natasha Williams, CVM News.
Mayor of Kingston, Andrew Swaby, says the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation, KSAMC, is ramping up efforts to improve sanitation and ease congestion in downtown Kingston under the Cleaner Kingston initiative. On Sunday, the KSAMC carried out a major cleanup operation along Haywood Street, clearing blocked drains and removing debris from the roadway. The effort was welcomed by vendors operating in the space.
Under the Cleaner Kingston initiative, would have given a month notice to the vendors on Haywood Street that we are coming in to clean. And so this is a part of what we have done. We have washed down there, we have taken away the junk, carted away the junk along the roadside and in the Queen's Market. And we have cleared the drains because it was clogged up. Because the sanitation is very important to the KSAMC, and the vendors and patrons' health are also important.
It's now time for regional and international news.
We begin with news in the region. The St. Lucia government is moving to strengthen its preparedness measures following the World Health Organization's declaration of a public health emergency of international concern. This involves the recent outbreak of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We hear more from DBS News.
Based on information from the World Health Organization, that licensed Ebola vaccines and approved therapeutics are available for the disease caused by the Ebola virus. However, for the most recent one, the Bundibugyo virus disease, there is currently no approved vaccine or therapeutic specific to this particular strain.
The minister revealed that St. Lucia has already implemented updated border and security protocols as part of its contingency planning. Testing capabilities and protective equipment are reportedly in place should the need arise.
In international news, 3 people have been killed in a shooting at a mosque complex in California, which is being investigated as a hate crime. The attack took place at the Islamic Center of San Diego, which houses a mosque and a school. Al Jazeera reports.
The 3 victims include a security guard who confronted the gunman. The 2 suspects, aged 17 and 19, were later found dead in a car after apparently taking their own lives. It's the deadliest attack on a mosque in the U.S. this year.
Meanwhile, at least 21 people have died due to torrential rains across southern and central China, closing schools, businesses and transport links as authorities warn of landslides and flash floods across multiple provinces. Reuters tells us more.
Deadly flooding has hit large parts of central and southern China as torrential rains continued on Tuesday. Witness video, verified by Reuters, showed a car being swept away in the southwestern Guizhou province towards a pile of vehicles that had suffered the same fate. Schools, businesses and transport services were closed, according to state broadcasters.